Smells like time for another set of AMD graphics cards. And, I'm really excited. Why? Because, first of all, you thought Nvidia kept a good secret. You take a look at AMD. Oh boy. You had no idea. Nobody had any idea. And just until recently, we had a couple rumors coming out about a refresh of the Polaris GPUs from AMD. And just recently are we starting to catch whiff of this. And they're supposed to come out next week from the rumors that we're seeing online. So you think Nvidia kept a good secret. Nobody even expected it from AMD. Obviously, there was some, with logic, you would kind of expect, since Nvidia put out a really good product this year, you'd expect something from AMD. And I kind of was, but there was no talk about it. It was all hush hush. Nobody talked about it. No one was expecting. We were all excited for AMD or Nvidia, and Nvidia releases the 20 series, and then we've got this 12 nanometer Pascal or Polaris refresh, and it's all really exciting. And today I want to talk about just what this means, what we're going to be expecting, and what to expect for these new cards. Because I talked earlier about this year about how the new Vega 2 was supposed to be that 7 nanometer number. And I want to kind of take today's video to not only kind of revise that, but also take a moment to talk about, change a couple things, of course, but also talk about these new cards and what we now know, because there's been a slight divide in between what I talked about in that video, which applies to something kind of totally different now than it does for the Polaris GPUs that we're going to be seeing from AMD. So without further ado, let's get into the video and let's get started. So we have AMD that recently has kind of responded to Nvidia and kind of some rumors that are leaking. Now, rumors don't mean much on their own, but we got to take in a couple things into account. So first off, we've got Nvidia that has posted and made this amazing product that they've advertised well. Now, the logic behind RTX and what that really means for people can be a different discussion, and you can talk about the AI part of it and how it's not really ray tracing, or you can talk about the ray tracing and how it's not 4K 60 FPS. There's a lot of discussion over there. Regardless, they made something that made a lot of people interested and do some research, which, good job on them, drove a lot of product interest, but keep in mind that AMD did it first. Just saying. Fact. AMD actually did ray tracing first, so if that's a new fact for you, look it up. It's actually an interesting story. But AMD now is coming out with a Polaris Refresh, which is supposed to be down to 12 nanometers. Now, originally I think it was at 14, and we're going down to 12, which does mean a lot in performance, efficiency, and power, because some of the biggest problems with the Polaris GPUs are they're a little power hungry. And so if you knock down that power consumption, you get a nice GPU that does a pretty good job at gaming. And if they, of course, they boost up those clock speeds, put some GDDR6 on there, that would be an amazing card. They might even come a little bit close to the 1080 Ti, maybe even break past that and offer something to compete with the 20 series. Now, in ray tracing, there's no way they're going to be able to specialize in that. I don't expect them to. While I do think they'll be able to produce some type of card that does a great job of that 1080p 4K gaming, I think they can do something along that line. I wouldn't be surprised to see that in an upcoming lineup from them. So another question to ask is, hey, should I wait for these new GPUs? So there's a lot of discussion on this topic, and you can go a lot of different ways, and I'm going to try to explain each way, because on this channel I like to provide all the options and let people make their own decisions. Because if I tell you something, not only do I not want to be accountable if I say something that doesn't necessarily work out in a year from now. Like, I had one person trying to quote me on something. I was like, yeah, I said like the 2800X will be a great CPU in the next year, and they were trying to quote me on that. They're like, yeah, it hasn't even come out yet. I'm like, or didn't even come out, and well, it's not coming out yet. And we don't even know what it is. So it's really hard to quote me on that. That's what I meant by that. But anyway, so should you buy one of these? Well, it's really difficult to say how Nvidia does this. I'm going to put this on the circumstances I would say buy it. First of all, or AMD, sorry. AMD would have to produce graphics cards with GDDR6. They would have to be available, and that's what they'd have to put in Polaris, along with shrinking the die size down to 12 nanometers. By doing both of those, they'll probably get enough performance out of it to compete somewhere in the market with a 1080 Ti. And I would say, since the Vega 64 fell right in between, kind of like a 1080 Ti and a 1080, I'd say on the lower end of that. I would say that I'd expect if they're going to make a whole refresh of it, it's going to have to perform better, which makes me concerned, or not really concerned, but wonder if they're going to do something better, where is that top line going to fall? Is it going to fall close to the 1080 Ti, past the 1080 Ti, or kind of down with Vega 64, which I don't expect to see because it's not something you'd expect to release another product that just kind of performs the same. They'd have to go above and do better. So I'd expect it to fall somewhere along that line. Now, if ray tracing isn't a big deal for you, which honestly right now at the moment ray tracing isn't at the point where it's actually an enjoyable thing because we still don't have that 4K 60 at bare minimum, and I'd really like to see 4K 144 Hertz support, and that's not really happening at the moment. So I'd say even if you're going to go for RTX, I would say either wait a couple generations until that actually becomes a prevalent thing that we can actually get those nice round numbers, or stick with an AMD card that when it comes out. It really does depend on what we see from AMD, because right now we're just starting to get whiffs of and rumors, and while we know what Nvidia has put out, a lot of ray tracing center stuff, and while there is a little bit more 4K 60 support, 4K 144 support, there's a lot of that available from some of the benchmarks we've been getting. It really just depends on what you're putting price over, because that price of $1,300 for a 2080 Ti compared to something that may be only $700 to compete with a 1080 Ti from AMD may actually be a much better deal, especially if you're just trying to go for something that's just a 4K 60 FPS monitor, especially since those are actually relatively cheap, and a 4K 144 Hz monitor is absolutely expensive and insane. And right now, neither the graphics cards to drive those or the graphics cards themselves are really that cheap as well. So there's a sweet spot that AMD could exploit, and if they do, that's why I say buy it. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, of course, give the video a thumbs up. I'm building a really nice recording PC for gaming, so if you want to check that build out, that'll be coming out over the next week. I'm really excited for that one. I'll be doing a lot of unboxings and stuff coming out soon. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you want to check those out, and also check out my channel for some of the other cool stuff like the Verge's PC build and a bunch of other different things. Lego PCs, we'll be doing a pumpkin PC up for a couple months, and then we got a Christmas PC and a couple really cool PC projects that I'm excited to get into. But thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.